Welcome back everyone, and welcome to Chapter 11, Exploring Network Security. Up to this point in the course, we focused heavily on how networks operate and how devices communicate with each other. But building a fast and reliable network is only part of the job. As network engineers, we also need to make sure our networks are secure and protected from cyber threats. Designing a network without security is like leaving your house unlocked while you are away. Anyone could enter and take what they want simply because there are no protections in place. The same principle applies to networks. Security must always be a priority when designing and managing enterprise infrastructure. In this chapter, we will explore common network threats and attacks, understand why security is essential in modern networks, and learn how organizations develop security programs to protect systems and users. We will cover security concepts, password management, vulnerability assessment tools, authentication, authorization and accounting, Wireshark fundamentals, and elements of a security program. As network professionals, our primary responsibility is to ensure reliable connectivity between devices. However, with the rise of cybercrime, organizations must also ensure their systems and data are protected from malicious actors attempting to compromise networks. The first step in designing a secure network is identifying an organization's assets. An asset is anything that has value to the organization. These are typically grouped into three categories: tangible assets, intangible assets, and people. Tangible assets are physical items such as computers, servers, network devices, and other equipment within the organization. These devices often store important data and system logs that may be critical during security investigations. Intangible assets are non-physical items such as intellectual property, procedures, security, and digital data that hold value for the organization. People are also considered assets and include employees, customers, and suppliers. Organizations must protect their users from cyber threats through proper security practices and awareness. Many organizations store customer information such as names, addresses, and contact details. This information is known as personally identifiable information and must be carefully protected from unauthorized access. Modern cyber attacks are no longer limited to disrupting services. Attackers often aim to steal valuable data, financial information, or digital assets such as cryptocurrency. Stolen data may be sold on the dark web or used in ransomware attacks where victims are forced to pay to regain access to their systems. As cyber threats continue to grow, the demand for strong information security increases. The foundation of information security is based on three core principles known as the CIA Triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These three principles guide how organizations protect and manage their information systems. Confidentiality ensures that only authorized users can access sensitive data or systems. One of the most common methods used to protect confidentiality is encryption, which converts readable data into an unreadable format using an algorithm and a secret key. The secret key is required to decrypt and access the data, so it must be kept secure. If the key is lost or stolen, the confidentiality of the data is compromised. A practical example is BitLocker in Microsoft Windows, which encrypts data stored on a disk. Even if an attacker gains access to the device, they cannot read the data without the encryption key. Integrity ensures that the data has not been altered or tampered with during storage or transmission. When data is sent across a network, mechanisms such as hashing or error checking values help verify that the data received is identical to the data sent. If the values do not match, it indicates the data may have been modified. For example, networking protocols often use silic redundancy check values to detect whether data has been corrupted or altered during transmission. Maintaining integrity allows systems to detect unauthorized changes and ensures the reliability of information. Availability ensures that systems, applications, and data are accessible to authorized users whenever they are needed. If critical resources become unavailable, an organization may not be able to operate effectively. One common threat to availability is a denial of service attack, where attackers overwhelm a system with traffic or requests, preventing legitimate users from accessing the service. For example, if a web server receives an extremely large number of malicious requests, it may become overloaded and unable to respond to legitimate users. Effective security requires balancing of all three pillars of the CIA Triad. Focusing too heavily on one area can negatively impact the others. For example, prioritizing confidentiality too heavily may make systems difficult for legitimate users to access. Prioritizing availability too heavily may reduce security controls, increasing the risk of unauthorized access. Security professionals must implement controls that maintain a balanced approach to protect data while still allowing systems to function efficiently. As more devices connect to the internet, organizations face increasing security risks. A threat is anything that has the potential or motivation to cause harm to a person, system, or network. Modern businesses rely heavily on the internet connectivity to deliver services and reach customers. Many organizations are no longer traditional brick-and-mortar businesses, and instead operate primarily online. For example, companies such as Amazon provide services entirely through internet platforms. Because most organizations are connected to the internet, attackers may attempt to gain access to internal networks using malware, stolen credentials, or by exploiting vulnerabilities. While many companies invest heavily in reliable and scalable network infrastructure, security is sometimes overlooked. A network designed for performance alone may still be vulnerable to both internal and external threats. Threats can take many forms. Attackers may attempt to steal login credentials, exploit software vulnerabilities, or crack wireless network passwords to gain unauthorized access. A key responsibility of security professionals is protecting an organization's assets. An asset is anything that has value to the organization. Tangible assets include physical items such as computers, servers, network devices, and office equipment. These assets must be protected from theft or physical damage. For example, if laptops in a business environment are not physically secured, they may be stolen. This is not one physical theft, but also data theft, as the device may contain sensitive information stored on its internal drive. The most valuable asset for most organizations is data. Attackers frequently target systems and networks to steal valuable information that can be sold or used for financial gain. Security considerations must extend to all environments where data is stored, including local networks, data centers, and cloud platforms. Cloud services have become increasingly common as organizations move infrastructure and applications to cloud providers. However, cloud environments require the same level of security attention as traditional on-premises networks. A threat actor is any individual or group responsible for carrying out a security attack or incident. Threat actors are typically characterized by their motivations and level of expertise. Common types of threat actors include script kiddies. Script kiddies are inexperienced hackers who rely on pre-built tools and tutorials created by more skilled hackers. Although they may not fully understand the underlying technology, they can still cause damage by running automated attacks. Hacktivists combine hacking with political or social activism. Their attacks are often intended to promote a cause or protest against organizations or governments. Common activities include website defacement, data leaks, and distributed denial of service attacks. Cybercriminal groups often operate like structured organizations, with members specializing in different roles such as reconnaissance, exploit development, and money laundering. Their primary motivation is financial gain. State-sponsored attacks are highly skilled hackers funded by governments. These groups may conduct cyber espionage, intelligence gathering, or cyber warfare against other nations. Not all threats originate from outside the organization. Insider threats come from individuals within the organization who misuse their authorized access. These may be employees, contractors, or partners with malicious intentions. Organizations often hire ethical hackers to identify security weaknesses before malicious attackers can exploit them. Ethical hackers conduct penetration testing, which simulates real-world attacks to evaluate the security of systems and networks. Black hat hackers use their technical skills for illegal and malicious purposes, such as stealing data, deploying malware, or conducting ransomware attacks. Grey hat hackers fall somewhere between white hat and black hat hackers. They may discover vulnerabilities without permission and sometimes disclose them, but their actions may still violate laws or policies. Understanding threats and threat actors is an important step in protecting organizational assets. The next step is identifying vulnerabilities, which are weaknesses that attackers can exploit to compromise systems or networks. A common question students ask when beginning cybersecurity is, how do hackers break into systems or networks? The answer is simple. Attackers look for vulnerabilities. A vulnerability is a weakness or flaw in a system, configuration, or policy that can be exploited by a threat actor. Security researchers and attackers are constantly competing to discover these weaknesses. Researchers aim to report vulnerabilities so vendors can fix them, while attacks attempt to exploit them before patches are applied. Security tools such as Nessus are widely used to scan systems and identify known vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities can exist in many forms, including misconfigured systems, weak security policies, insecure protocols, outdated software, and human error. For example, a network device configured to allow Telnet instead of SSH for remote management introduces a vulnerability. Telnet transmits data in plain text, while SSH encrypts communication. Many common network protocols were not originally designed with strong security in mind. Weaknesses may exist in protocols such as IP, ICMP, HTTP, and SNMP. For example, SNMP version 1 lacks authentication mechanisms, which may allow attackers to gather sensitive information from network devices. Attackers also take advantage of unpatched software vulnerabilities. A well-known example is Eternal Blue vulnerability, which exploited weaknesses in the SMB version 1 protocol and allowed attackers to execute remote code on vulnerable systems. Operating systems and device firmware must therefore be updated regularly. If organizations delay security updates, their system remains exposed to known vulnerabilities. Many security weaknesses occur due to improper configuration. Examples include weak or default passwords, unsecured network services, default device configurations, and unencrypted communication protocols. For example, the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol does not encrypt traffic by default. If credentials are transmitted over an unsecured network, attackers may capture the authentication hash and attempt to crack it offline. Default configurations can also introduce security risks. Devices often ship with minimal security settings to simplify initial setup. If these defaults are not changed before deployment, attackers may gain unauthorized access. One of the most overlooked security weaknesses is the human factor. Attackers frequently exploit human behavior rather than technical systems. This is known as social engineering. Social engineering attacks manipulate individuals into revealing sensitive information or performing actions that compromise security. These attacks are often non-technical and rely on deception and trust. Common social engineering attacks include phishing. Phishing involves sending fraudulent emails that appear to come from legitimate organizations. The message often contains a malicious link or attachment designed to steal credentials or install malware. Spear phishing is a more targeted form of phishing aimed at a specific group or organization. The message is crafted to appear highly believable to the intended victims. Whaling targets high-profile individuals such as executives or directors. Attackers attempt to compromise their accounts to gain access to sensitive organizational information. Phishing is a social engineering conduct over the phone. Attackers impersonate trusted organizations such as banks or technical support teams to obtain confidential information. Smishing uses SMS text messages to trick victims into clicking malicious links or sharing sensitive data. Farming redirects users to malicious websites by manipulating DNS records, making victims believe they are visiting a legitimate site. In a watering hole attack, attackers compromise websites or networks frequently visited by employees of a target organization. When employees access the compromised resource, their devices may become infected with malware. Usernames and passwords are the most common method used to authenticate systems. However, weak passwords create significant security risks. To improve password security, the following guidelines should be followed. Use passwords at least 8 characters long. Include uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers and symbols. Avoid dictionary words. Avoid personal information such as birthdays or names. Use unique passwords for different accounts. Change passwords regularly. And do not write passwords in visible locations. Password managers can help generate and store strong passwords securely. However, passwords alone may still be vulnerable to brute force attacks. For stronger protection, organizations implement multi-factor authentication, MFA. MFA requires users to provide multiple forms of verification before accessing a system. These factors may include something you know, password, something you have, authentication app or token, and something you are, biometric data. For example, authenticator apps generate time-based security codes that change every 30 seconds, making it extremely difficult for attackers to guess the authentication value. Modern systems may also use biometric authentication, such as fingerprint recognition, facial recognition, iris or retina scans, and voice recognition. Another authentication method is the use of digital certificates, which are issued by a trusted certificate authority. The CA verifies the identity of the certificate holder and acts as a trusted third party in authentication systems. An exploit is the method, code, or technique used by an attacker to take advantage of a vulnerability in a system, application, or device. Once a vulnerability has been identified, attackers attempt to use an exploit to gain unauthorized access or execute malicious actions on the target system. Every operating system, application, and network device may contain both known and unknown vulnerabilities. When attackers discover these weaknesses, they search for or develop exploits that can leverage the flaw. Security professionals and penetration testers often use public exploit repositories such as Exploit Database to research known vulnerabilities and available exploits. A useful way to understand how these concepts relate is a threat uses an exploit to take advantage of a vulnerability. One well-known example is Eternal Blue, SM17010, a vulnerability found in Microsoft Windows systems that use Server Message Block version 1. This vulnerability allowed attackers to perform remote code execution on unpatched systems. By using an exploit targeting this weakness, attackers could gain control over vulnerable machines across a network. Attackers and security professionals may also use exploitation frameworks, such as Metasploit. These frameworks allow users to develop payloads and exploit known vulnerabilities in operating systems and applications. After successfully exploiting a system, an attacker may escalate privileges to gain higher level access, maintain persistence on the compromised device, and pivot through the compromised system to attack other devices within the network. Understanding how exploits work helps security professionals identify vulnerabilities, apply patches, and implement controls that prevent attackers from compromising systems. Cyber attacks are malicious actions performed against systems or networks with the goal of disrupting services, stealing data, or gaining unauthorized access. Understanding common attack types helps security professionals identify risks and implement proper defenses. Malware is code designed to perform harmful actions on a system. Malware can steal data, damage files, or disrupt system operations. Security researchers continually analyze new malware variants as cyber threats evolve. Common types of malware include virus. A virus is malicious code that attaches itself to files or programs and spreads when the infected file is executed. Unlike some other malware, viruses typically require user interaction to activate. Examples include bot sector viruses, program viruses, macro viruses, and firmware viruses. A worm is self-replicating malware that spreads automatically across networks by exploiting vulnerabilities. Worm infections can consume system resources and severely slow down or crash infected systems. Ransomware encrypts a victim's files and demands payment for the decryption key. Attackers often request payment using cryptocurrency. Regular backups are the most effective protection against ransomware attacks. A Trojan horse disguises itself as a legitimate program but contains malicious code. Once executed, it may create a backdoor that allows attackers to access the system remotely. A common variant is a remote access Trojan, which allows attackers to control the victim's system, access files, enable webcams or microphones, and exfiltrate data. A rootkit is malware designed to gain privileged access by infecting the operating system kernel. Because rootkits operate at a very low level within the system, they can be difficult to detect and remove. Adware displays unwanted advertisements, often in browsers or pop-up windows. It is commonly bundled with free software installations. Spyware secretly collects information about a user's activities and sends it back to the attacker. This information may include browsing behavior, login credentials, or other personal data. Reconnaissance is the first phase of many cyber attacks. During this phase, attackers gather information about the target before launching an attack. Attackers may attempt to discover operating systems, open network ports, running services, and system vulnerabilities. Information can be collected using open source intelligence techniques such as search engine analysis, public databases, DNS records, and website information. Tools such as Nmap are commonly used to scan networks, identify open ports, and detect running services. Spoofing occurs when an attacker falsifies identity information to appear as another device or user. For example, attackers may spoof IP addresses, MAC addresses, and email addresses. By disguising the source of an attack, spoofing makes it more difficult to identify the true attacker. A denial of service attack attempts to make a system or service unavailable to legitimate users by overwhelming it with traffic or requests. For example, attackers may flood a web server with large numbers of requests, preventing it from responding to legitimate users. A distributed denial of service attack is similar but originates from many systems simultaneously, making it much more difficult to block. Two common DOS techniques include reflection attacks. The attacker sends requests with a spoofed source address so that responses are sent to the victim instead. And amplification attacks. The attacker sends small requests that trigger much larger responses from servers, increasing the volume of traffic directed toward the victim. In a man-in-the-middle attack, the attacker intercepts communication between two systems. By positioning themselves between the victim and the network gateway, attackers can capture sensitive data, steal credentials, and modify traffic. One common method is ARP spoofing, where the attacker sends fake ARP messages to redirect network traffic through their own device. A buffer overflow occurs when a program writes more data to a memory buffer than it can handle. If attackers exploit this vulnerability, they can insert malicious code into memory and cause the system to execute it. This can allow attackers to create backdoors, gain system control, and launch further attacks. Understanding common attack techniques helps network professionals recognize threats and implement stronger security controls. In the next section, we will explore authentication, authorization, and accounting and how it strengthens network security. Implementing AAA is essential for securing network devices and controlling user access within an organization. AAA ensures that only authorized users can access systems, that users receive the correct permissions, and that their actions are recorded. In enterprise networks, IT administrators often manage many devices such as routers, switches, and firewalls across multiple locations. Creating and managing individual user accounts on every device would be inefficient. AAA solves this problem by providing centralized authentication, authorization, and login. AAA helps answer important questions such as who accessed the device, what actions were performed, when were the changes made, and which device was affected. Authentication verifies the identity of a user before granting access to a system. This typically involves providing valid credentials such as a username and password. Authentication factors generally fall into three categories: something you know, password, PIN, or passphrase; something you have, security token or smart card; and something you are, biometric data such as fingerprint or retina scan. Without authentication, anyone could access a system and perform unauthorized actions. After a user is authenticated, the next step is authorization. Authorization determines what actions a user is allowed to perform on the system. Users are typically assigned permissions based on their role within the organization. For example, a network administrator may have full configuration access, and a help desk technician may only have limited troubleshooting permissions. This approach follows the principle of least privilege, ensuring users only have the access required to perform their job functions. Accounting records all user activity on a system or network. Logs generated during this process provide a detailed record of actions performed by users. These logs help administrators track configuration changes, identify security incidents, perform audits, and troubleshooting. Accounting ensures accountability by linking actions to specific users. In enterprise environments, AAA services are typically handled by a centralized AAA server. Network devices send authentication requests to this server, which verify user credentials, applies authorization policies, and records activity logs. Two common AAA protocols are Radius, Remote Authentication Dial-in User Service. Radius supports multi-vendor environments and is widely used for network authentication. The key characteristics: uses UDP port 1812 for authentication, uses UDP port 1813 for accounting, and encrypts only the user password during communication. TACAX Plus is a Cisco-developed AAA protocol that provides more granular control. The key characteristics: uses TCP port 49, encrypts the entire communication between client and server, and separates authentication, authorization, and accounting functions. In Cisco enterprise environments, systems such as Cisco Identity Services Engine are commonly used as centralized AAA servers. Implementing AAA allows organizations to centrally manage user access, enforce security policies, and maintain detailed activity logs, significantly improving network security and accountability. When designing a secure network, organizations must also focus on user awareness and training. Many security incidents occur because users are unaware of potential threats or do not know how to respond to them. A well-designed security program helps educate users and reduces the risk of human-related security breaches. User awareness is a critical part of any security program. Employees should understand the importance of protecting sensitive data and maintaining confidentiality. Training should also help users recognize common threats such as phishing emails, malware, and social engineering attacks. Users should also be instructed on how to report security incidents quickly so that IT teams can respond and minimize damage. Security training should not be a one-time event. Organizations should provide ongoing training to keep employees updated on new threats, policies, and procedures. Regular training helps reinforce good security practices and ensures users remain aware of current cybersecurity risks. Physical security is also an important element of a security program. Organizations should restrict access to sensitive areas such as server rooms, networking equipment, and data centers. Physical security's controls may include keycards or access badges, biometric scanners, security cameras, and locked server rooms. These measures help prevent unauthorized individuals from accessing critical systems or devices. A strong security program combines technical controls, user awareness, and physical security to protect organizational assets from both internal and external threats. Wireshark is one of the most widely used network protocol analyzers in networking and cybersecurity. It allows professionals to capture and analyze network traffic in real time. By inspecting packets moving across the network, engineers can troubleshoot connectivity issues, investigate suspicious activity, and perform network forensics. Wireshark provides detailed information about each packet, including source and destination IP addresses, source and destination MAC addresses, transport layer ports, and network protocol information. This visibility makes Wireshark extremely useful for diagnosing network problems and identifying abnormal or malicious traffic. You can download Wireshark from the official website. To capture network packets, open Wireshark, select the network interface you want to monitor, double-click the interface to begin capturing packets. Wireshark will immediately start displaying live network traffic flowing through that interface. By default, Wireshark displays IP addresses and port numbers in numeric format. To resolve these values into host names and service names, click Edit, Preferences, and enable Name Resolution. This allows Wireshark to display more readable information about hosts and services. Wireshark uses display filters to show specific traffic within a capture. So this is how you filter by source IP. This filter displays packets originating from a specific IP address. Filter by source and destination. This filter shows traffic between two specific devices. You can also right-click a packet and select Apply as Filter Selected to automatically generate a display filter. More display filters can be found here. Wireshark can summarize communication between devices. To view this information, statistics, conversations. This feature displays communication details across different protocol layers including Ethernet, IPv4, IPv6, TCP, and UDP. These statistics help identify which systems are communicating and how much traffic is being exchanged. Wireshark is a powerful tool for packet analysis, troubleshooting, and network security investigations, making it an essential tool for both network engineers and cybersecurity professionals. Summary: in this chapter, you learned about the importance of information security and why organizations must protect their assets from cyber threats. We explored key security concepts including threats, vulnerabilities, exploits, and common cyber attacks that can impact systems and networks. You also learned about the CIA Triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and how these principles guide the protection of data in modern networks. Additionally, we discussed authentication, authorization, and accounting, and how centralized access control helps manage user permissions and track activity across enterprise devices. Understanding these concepts is essential for designing and maintaining secure networks. In the next chapter, Configuring Device Access Controls and VPNs, you will learn how to secure network devices and implement virtual private networks to protect communication across networks. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. I'm CyberEd, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.